Tom, tell that story. You mention it again in your book, Personal Odyssey, but when you were at Cornell and you discovered that there were some black students at Cornell who struck you as extremely intelligent and capable, but they were struggling all the same. They were unhappy and even angry all the same, and you investigated. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes.
After Cornell suddenly started admitting black students with qualifications not as high as the students already there, I discovered that half the black students were on academic probation. And so I went over to the administration building and looked up the test scores. Now, at that time, the average black student at Cornell scored at the 75th percentile on the SAT score.
Meaning that they were really smart kids.
They did better than 3/4 of the students who took that test.
And this is what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to affirmative action, that this is actually what's going on, right? People don't understand, and I know if you're watching this, you probably think that's crazy, but people that I work with, people that I know, they're personal friends that are just not, they just think that, oh no, you're just admitting more of a certain type of race into the school. It's just it is a quota, but you're not low. They don't think they're lowering the standards, and I try to explain to them, well, there's no other way to do that. If you want to get a certain population into an area, into a sector, into anything, and there isn't enough. If you have to have a certain amount, and there isn't enough people meeting the criteria, then the only way to do it is to lower the criteria. That's it, right? And that's what's happening. And he's going to explain now why that is absolutely detrimental to these super smart kids, right? We're talking about, whatever percentile, whatever top, fifth percentile of this demographic, and you're placing them with the top 0.1 percentile of a demographic and of a populace, and it doesn't work, right? You're doomed. They're doomed to failure. And they're really smart kids, and they can do the work. They just maybe there's a big difference between the NBA and even Division I, right? Some of those Division I kids can make it to the NBA, but the vast majority of D1 students will never be in the NBA. Of D1 basketball players will never be in the NBA. That's just a fact, right? So let him go on and explain.
But at Cornell, liberal arts college, which is where I taught, the average student there was at the 99th percentile. And so the professors teach to the kinds of students they have. Right. And therefore, they'll proceed at a faster pace. They'll proceed with fewer.
I'm hoping I didn't step on that point. So he said that the college students, the black college students at Cornell, or whatever race he said, were at the 70th percentile in terms of SAT scores, right? So they were smarter than 2/3 of all the kids who took the SATs, really smart. However, the populace in that particular school, in whatever particular sector he was in, they were at the 99th percentile. So you're literally putting people that are, that are really smart, that are very capable, that are smarter than 2/3 of all students put together, and you're putting them arbitrarily in a place where these kids are smarter than 99% of all students. And, what do you think the outcome of that's going to be?
Who took that test. But at Cornell, liberal arts college, which is where I taught, the average student there was at the 99th percentile. And so the professors teach to the kinds of students they have. Right. And therefore, they'll proceed at a faster pace. They'll proceed with fewer explanations because the students already know so much themselves. And so someone who is perfectly capable of handling the work, if it's taught in a way that's geared to students at the 75th percentile, cannot keep up. It was even more extreme at MIT. The average black student in one of the studies done some time back at MIT was at the 90th percentile in mathematics, which they scored higher than 90% of the students who took the test. But they were in, so that made them in the top 10%. But at MIT, they were in the bottom 10% because at MIT, there's no question that the vast majority of the students are in the 1%. So it's a question only of where you are in the top 1%, because virtually everybody else is.
Right.
And so things that they proceed obviously at a pace and a complexity with those kinds of students, which most American students, black or white, wouldn't be able to keep up with.
Right. Tom, here's another item to which you link on your website. This is a critique.
And that's something that a lot of people just don't talk about, right? It's not just that, it's detrimental to the kids that it's espousing to help the most, right? You're just arbitrarily putting these students into a scenario where they're not a fit. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with anything. They just don't fit the institution, right? Just allow them to be placed where the merit warrants, right? And then they can flourish and they can do good. And what ends up happening is that, rather than, having a minority student that grows up and becomes a chemist, from another institution, they go to MIT and then they take something, that's in like liberal arts or something like that. They move away from the STEM field that they could have been a really good asset to and, done amazing things. And now, they have to take some other, bullshit, whatever, like whatever the thing is, right? Like they were accelerating in a particular sector that most kids don't, right? And you stomp that out because you're putting them in an institution that isn't what they are. So give me a like, give me a share, give me a subscribe. Thanks a lot. We'll see you again in the next video. Thank you.